Rockets give up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 2025 number 10 pick, so the draft happening in a few days from now, and then 5 second-round picks. Have some ideas and thoughts on the ramifications and some reflections, at least on Phoenix's end. Let's talk about it. This is an incredible lesson to be learned about superstars that are cut from the player empowerment cloth. A 37-year-old Kevin Durant, he is a notorious basketball thought, comes around, people get really excited, he gets unhappy really easily, and all of a sudden it is a ticking time bomb until he forces his way out. We have been hearing now for multiple months that Kevin Durant wanted out and that the Phoenix Suns were willing to entertain offers for him. And what you end up getting with a team in Phoenix's position is their hands are tied in a nutshell, similar to Miami's with Damian Lillard. But it's even worse because it's clear they had eyes on this particular draft that's happening on Wednesday, meaning their timeline was very fixed. And apparently somebody in Durant's camp is leaking all of the teams that he's only taking seriously. And all of a sudden, you get shorted or shafted on these offers. And I just think that this is really, really what you bargain for when you get Kevin Durant, and particularly when you get him in a context where it is so outdatedly star-studded. The big three in Brooklyn, you have a new big three in Phoenix. These are really outdated frameworks for winning in today's league, not even just thinking about the personalities and the egos and all of the fluffy stuff in between. But what caught my attention the most is the Jalen Green piece. It's reported that Matt Ishbia and the Suns management team are actually not looking to flip Jalen Green, even though they have Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I always felt like he had a pretty unfair welcoming party to the NBA, and particularly on this Rockets team. Ime Udoka deserves a lot of credit for instilling the non-negotiables, meaning really the defense and defensive identity, the defensive buy-in, having his voice heard in their draft selections, looking at Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, etc. But you'll notice there haven't been any role models for a player of Jalen Green's archetype, which is really not that dissimilar to Devin Booker's, if you will. And the overall offensive system and strategies that they have employed, pretty caveman-esque and not very dynamic. I have to think that's half a function of, again, what types of players they're drafting, but the other half has to be the amount of investment in getting the right minds into the actual coaching rooms and constructing really effective ways of winning that can unlock Jalen to reach his actual potential. And more than that, you have Ime Udoka, who is proven himself to be a very short leash coach. Coaches very hard. It's very evident Jalen makes some mistakes, and it's not even just limited to him. A lot of these young guys have very short leashes, and you see them get yanked out of the game. But more importantly than that, he's made it clear that he is a win-now coach, and deserved Coach of the Year candidate, did exceptionally well getting into this echelon. But I don't think much of the success came from galvanizing Jalen Green and embedding some kind of talent or schemes to really help him contribute towards effective winning consistently, and then 2 is unlocking the type of player that he is and meeting him where his strengths are. You've got no role models in his actual archetype as a player. You have a very desolate offensive ecosystem around him that is very clearly leaned towards defense first and getting stops and playing junkyard ball, free throws, turnovers, offensive rebounds. And then you have a coach that is a notorious short leash on young players that has made clear his mission is to win now and not give guys enough grace to play through mistakes and what have you. And all of a sudden you're left with a 23-year-old who has been ripped apart in popular media and even among players and podcasts, like he's been called upon to be an all-star essentially out of the womb by himself, which translates to the type of floor game that you see. It's pretty much an ISO heavy Jalen save us, go break someone down off the dribble and try and make the right reads and not drive into crowds. I'm not completely absolving him of these younger amateur rookie type of errors, but I don't feel like the Rockets really invested enough in helping him. It again just felt like a team that was really, really focused on winning, however that looked like in that particular moment. While it might behoove the team to literally yank him out of the game, that is myopic and short-sighted thinking. And to bring it back to Phoenix now, the removal of those types of things will help, especially the coach. I do think the role model stuff with Beal and Booker might be helpful, even as a relatability component in older brother scenario, just general mentors. The offensive system surely is up in the air. We all know that Phoenix's ability to optimize its own mid-range maestros into consistent offense has not been great. They did address some of that with the injection of ball handling, but still room to grow. The biggest thing is being out of the spotlight will help him. It kind of reminds me of Zion when he came in and had all these lofty expectations. Obviously, the health stuff really dictates the headlines for his case. But last year, when he dropped 40 points on the Lakers and borderline almost beat them by himself in the play-in before having the hamstring come up in the final, 2 minutes of the game, I really, really think we would all be looking at him a little bit differently. The idea that you can grow and develop outside of that contention spotlight, which clearly the Rockets are obsessed with maintaining, will be helpful for a guy like Jalen Green, who came out of the G League Ignite, did not go to college, where this showcase basketball concept led the Ignite team to getting sunset. It's not even in place anymore, and I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of structure and development and the hard coaching that comes with fighting your way throughout the NBA. What can the Suns bring out of Jalen Green? I definitely think much more than the Rockets did. And the kid's only 23, so I really don't think that we should only be looking at him as a salary dump. The identity component to what they were able to prove last year, defense first, junkyard ball. Yes, we're missing a closer. I don't think places like Minnesota were going to work for KD, not just about the salary constraints, but the idea of winning and Anthony Edwards getting all of the praise and that whole saga thing, which clearly Ant took really personally. It just made a lot of sense having Kevin get his crack at being the heralded closer, killer, offensive billboard guy for such a stalwart defensive team. Stone, the GM, all of his team did a great job with this trade. A fantastic but pretty expected haul. Again, thinking about how hamstrung the Suns were, trying to get a crack at this very talented draft coming on Wednesday. They hold on to Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd, and the other Suns picks, which all of those assets, players and picks combined, they really just serve as KD thought insurance. If, God forbid, this all goes up in flames and KD wants out again, which is entirely on the table, they're going to be fine. Also going to be KD availability insurance during that regular season, as Oklahoma City and the Rockets last year proved. Having a very elite defense can really buoy you throughout the regular season. A stockpile of defensive-minded dogs who are young enough where they're hunting and thirst trapping for their first real contract. Yes, Kevin Durant presents a host of offensive upgrades for this team, none being bigger than the consistency of outside and mid-range shooting. The spacing, I think, is going to be helpful for Şengün's nail or post play. You think about the baby Jokic comparisons. When you have somebody like Kevin Durant spacing around that, it's just going to make it harder for him to get doubled in tight spots. And I'm sure he'll be aware of that when he thinks about planning the flag for positioning, where he's going to be driving. Also, the Amen Thompson cuts and spray outs. I don't know why the first thing I thought of was Şengün planted on the elbow and Amen Thompson cutting on the weak side into the middle of the floor and then twisting in one motion to kick it out to KD on the wing or corner. I feel like they can get that pretty consistently. Connects to what kind of growth Amen Thompson can showcase, particularly with his short mid-range finishing or rim finishing. Presenting that much downhill pressure is how you get guys to collapse automatically, subconsciously, which then opens up those types of sprays. But again, that is a way to capitalize on the added growth from your youth, as well as the new spacing component with KD. The release valve component is extremely self-evident. Now KD is going to have Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün setting screens for him. Mason Plumlee is not setting the same kind of screens as Steven Adams. I just think when you think about bread and butter consistency deep in the postseason, a Steven Adams DHO or just running KD on a curl around him screening, don't know how you're going to guard that besides getting really funky and intentional with those defensive matchups. The isolation, in a nutshell, KD being 37 is not going to be a big hindrance towards his effectiveness in those situations. It's who he is. It's how he's made all of his money. He's just unstoppable with that release point. And the junkyard ball, I want to say the Warriors are a bit anomalous as far as how effective it was. They were pretty small and undersized. The ultra big lineup with Steven Adams, Şengün at the 4, and Jabari Smith at the 3. Those are 3 dudes, 6'11" to 6'9". And your 3 through 5, they pummeled the shit out of them with offensive rebounds and second chance scores. You can still kind of do that with KD at the 3. Really apples to apples as far as Jabari to Kevin Durant when it comes to floor spacing. He is not going to be having to risk his body, getting offensive rebounds, getting to the free throw line. Brooks wasn't the guy crashing to get rebounds either. He was a spacer for these types of kickouts off of offensive rebounds, which is undoubtedly going to be the biggest nutritional diet source for Kevin Durant's scoring, is just how many offensive rebounds and extra possessions this team is going to be able to outwork and outmuscle from its opponents. That is one of the scariest sights in all of basketball, is an offensive rebound kick out to a wide open Kevin Durant. It's just going to be money about 80+% of the time. Defensively, they're definitely going to stay elite. I think Ime Udoka is probably just going to be even meaner now without Dillon Brooks to be his little minion and floor general out there on the floor. It is Tari Eason time. He comes away with the most small forward minutes in the playoffs this past year, behind Jalen Green. Pretty likely is going to get the nod. The defensive tenacity, the relentlessness, the pretty reliable shooting as well, I might add. He is going to be a flanking stallion out in the open floor who can convert his own turnovers more than well enough by himself, but is very, very conscientious of the guys flanking him, like Amen Thompson in the open floor. And man, there were just some flashes in the postseason and regular season of Tari, Jalen Green, and Amen Thompson running the open floor. I mean, you're not going to stop any of them. And being able to retain both Amen and Tari, again, in this trade is really, really remarkable. I would have sold completely out for Tari Eason if I were Phoenix. I'm sure he was pretty untouchable being the backup. You now have Amen and Tari in your 2 through 3 taking on the best defensive assignments. I really like the interchangeability of the two of them there. Cam Bazemore off the bench as Well, that identity is not going to dissolve with the loss of Brooks. I also think Ime Udoka will just refuse to ever let that happen anyway. I do have a feeling more moves are coming. Given Durant's age, his track record with availability, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept the team as is for now, ride it into the trade deadline. I would not be surprised, though, if they do try and make upgrades come that deadline. Jalen and Brooks, 2 core pieces out of your top 7 or 8 that did get meaningful minutes this past year. Obviously, Whitmore and Reed have to be participants and contributing ones, provided how little playing time they got last year, which is another extension of the win now mentality that Ime Udoka has had, similar to Michael Malone in Denver. These guys didn't get a lot of meaningful minutes to actually get acclimated and develop on the floor. So a bit of uncertainty there. And depending on how the rest of the Western Conference and league pan out, how much better the Oklahoma City Thunder are looking by that February timeline next year, I don't think it's off the table that Houston believes its window is even more right now. And given the remaining depth, the trade assets, getting a little bit more creation, a little more initiation into this roster. Fred VanVleet, Kevin Durant, really as your 1 and 2 advantage creators in the postseason. I don't love that going up against formidable defenses, just like Oklahoma City. Somebody to come off of the bench and give them more reliable shooting. I don't know why Cole Anthony is jumping out in my brain, probably just because he was included in that Bane trade. The defensive question marks probably doesn't make him a great candidate in the eyes of Ime Udoka, but I'm sure in their minds they're mostly praying that Reed Shepherd is ready to come out of the toy box and join the party and actually get going to contribute sooner rather than later. Amen Thompson showed a lot of upside in how they closed out the series against the Warriors as a downhill threat. When he gets himself in a more confident headspace to really just use his freakish athleticism that really nobody can stop, he can really pose problems too, especially when you think about decoy cuts, getting KD open, that sort of stuff. These guys deserve, for the time being, to be the second favorite to come out of the Western Conference. It's obviously a bunch of vacuum type stuff, but the fact that they were able to, again, retain all of this depth, have the confidence of preserving its defensive identity, come into next year with a taste of postseason competition and even more hunger from its younger guys. And most of this team is very, very young after this quality token of experience against a veteran team like the Warriors. I think they're going to be hungry to grow. They didn't really compromise too much of their asset pool, and they also still have a very, very solidified defensive identity with now one of the most unstoppable isolation scorers, movement scorers, players the league has ever seen. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and